Hey, welcome to The Warrior and the Wolf, the show where you can show up authentically, be safe, be seen, and have somebody that's going to come alongside you and help you fight for what you want. Let's get after it.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Warrior and the Wolf podcast. This is episode 23. I am the Wolf,
I'm the warrior.
and we are going to do part two today of what I describe as a really tough topic. And we're laughing because I'm laughing because there's fear in this for me, for sure. There's a bunch of fear in this, but I also think that there's no humanly possible way to deny the fact that it is running rampant and no one is freaking talking about it. This is a follow-up to our original podcast of the porn paradox. We are diving back into this. We've gotten some feedback from some folks and they wanted us to go a little bit deeper. And the reality of it is right, wrong, and different, whether you agree, whether you disagree or not. The feedback that we got, people were refreshed that someone's at least willing to freaking talk about this.
Yep.
Because the amount of money alone tells me that it is ridiculously widespread, and somebody is not owning up to it because nobody talks about it.
No. I mean, just to reiterate, we said on our last episode, you can go back and listen to it. Someone doing all the facts. So I shared with you the statistic that the porn industry makes more money per year than the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, and we can even throw MLS in there.
I'm just blown away, dude. When you gave me that stat, we're talking about an industry that brings in that kind of resources and nobody's talking about it.
Hundreds of billions of dollars. So here's something even more crazy, which is kind of spurred on. So the feedback we got, yes. And I think it'd be interesting to go into that because I think maybe we got some similar feedback. We also got some different feedback. So I'd like to get into that. But what really hit me, and I don't know if you know this or not, the largest, I guess, purveyor paid site of adult videos is a website called, and I'm not even going to plug the website, but it's a big website whose initials are PH, right? So
Okay.
what came down is there was an undercover investigation done, and one of the CEOs admitted that there's a government loophole that nobody will ever change because there's so much money coming into it. This loophole,
Yeah.
so this loophole is allowing child sex trafficking and child pornography and rape videos simply if the faces are blurred out, because then there doesn't have to be any age verification.
That's disgusting.
So think about that for a second. So the largest paid site for adult content, all somebody has to do, and anybody can post to this too. It's similar to YouTube, right?
Right.
So anybody can post a video. So some sicko out there could be trafficking children, rape videos, whatever they are, and as long as they blur faces out, there is no age verification. So why? And the reason, my judgment, the reason behind that is those hundreds of billions of dollars.
Buddy, I will say the word Epstein and it will justify what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I get it.
So,
Man, I love the fact that you're not willing to give that website any publicity. Good for you.
yeah, I can't in good conscience. If somebody's going to go look it up, be like, oh, no. So I want to dive into kind of the feedback that we got that kind of led
I
it.
just say, I would love to know what you heard.
The feedback that I got, it was actually from a lot of women.
Yeah.
Who have been hurt in relationships because of pornography or pornography addiction.
Right.
So many times, like I hear, like it's like a victimless thing. Like nobody gets hurt. It's you do it by yourself for the most part, But gosh, man, hearing other people be like, it destroyed my marriage. It destroyed my husband. It made my dad leave my mom. Just so the feedback I got is people wanted to, from our side, like, dive more into it, dive more into the ramifications and the hurt that it can cause.
1,000%.
So that's a lot of the feedback I got.
I would even offer, brother, like, dive into the hurt that's driving you to the site, right?
Mhm.
Once you're there, that's a different kind of hurt. We're talking about so much hurt in this space. And I alluded to it, right? I know that I take a little more liberal stance on this than you have a tendency to do, because I'm not in anybody's bedroom. That's none of my business. But you and I have unilaterally agreed, if I'm shopping for a car, if I go to CarMax.com, no, they're not a sponsor. We don't have to put any plug in or anything. But what am I looking for? I went to that site for a reason. I needed something on that site. I look at all the tabs that I have up on my browser right now, and I need something. There's information on every single one of them that I need. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The question that I have is, what need do you have that's taking you to that site? And it's not physical. Let's just start there.
Yeah.
It is not, you need or want something that you're not getting somewhere else. That's why you're there.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I think the problem for me lies in that's where the conversation stops a lot of times. People are like, hey, well, you're hurt, or you're looking for intimacy, or your wife is cold or distant, your husband is cold or distant. So we're like, okay, well, you're hurt, so that's why you're there.
Yeah.
And then that's where the conversation stops.
Yep.
Right? So, but you do you, because like you said, that's your bedroom. That's what you're going to do.
Yep.
Episode, we talked about like who's at your table and people having authority, right? In your, and I don't have authority. I only have authority to speak into like a handful of people's lives. But I would offer it. I present it like if we had a good friend who wasn't getting, was looking for something, was searching for something to heal a wound with alcohol, with heroin, with drugs, with something like that, we're going to say something, but like, you're killing yourself, you're ruining your life, you're alienating people around you. Like, we would say something about that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to pornography or that addiction, we're like, yeah, I'm not touching that.
And it's interesting you say that, because we have a man at our table right now who has flat out asked for help.
Yeah.
In this space.
And then I feel like with us, okay, we'll be able to help that man. But what I'm talking about as a whole, as a society, there's a reason why it's $300 billion a year.
Well, like I said, brother, like, I look at all the tabs that's open right now on my browser, and I'm like, oh, I'm using that site for this. I'm using this site for that. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to those sites for what? Is it connection? Is it affirmation? Is it control? Mm-hmm. What is it you're looking like? That's where I want to get. Like,
absolutely.
Because how many different places can someone go to get the physical gratification? You don't have to go to a website to get that.
No.
Right? What is it you went to the site for? And that's the vulnerability that I believe men and women aren't willing to step into. What are you looking for?
Yeah. Oh no, I get it. And I think the root problem is like, you got to figure out what's going on. My issue is just again, I said with alcohol or drugs, like, you can look at somebody and be like, doing hardcore drugs is illegal, right? So when you're breaking the law, you're risking jail time, you're risking killing yourself. But when it comes to, like, we know, and again, in our situation, it's kind of different. Like, if we have people like, hey, I need help with this. But for the most part, worldwide, especially in Western society, in America, it is not something we're just like, yeah, that's between you and your spouse, or between you and the screen or whatever. So I guess my goal is to start bringing more awareness to it. I think if more people, especially men, start putting their foot down and be like, this isn't okay.
I definitely think that the physical act in and of itself, hey, do you. That's something I don't necessarily think I can help you with.
Meaning
But
what? Like somebody participating in?
yeah, but like for me, if it is for affirmation, if it is for connection, if you're feeling like you want to have control over something and you feel like this is an area where you have control, okay, that I absolutely want to have a conversation with you about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where's that message coming from? Right? Because at some point, pornography became the venue, right? That you went to get whatever it is you were looking for. Hey, since this person's not paying attention to me, I'll get the connection here.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, since I'm afraid to bring up some of my desires and other things because the church or grown-ups or whatever have told me this is bad. I don't want to say it. I'm just going to go here rather than talk about it. I think it's safe to say that clearly, based on the numbers we're talking about, you're not freaking alone.
And
Let's
I
talk.
would go into it and saying it's not just you're alone. You're not. Nobody's ever getting what they're looking for. If like that is driving you to
Yeah.
pornography, you're
Yeah.
never. That's why That's why it's a return industry, right?
Right.
That's why it's the most addictive substance
Tell me
out
why you
there.
put quotes. Tell me why you put quotes around that.
I mean, because people say like you can't. I did a lot of studying and reading into that, and people say like, oh, it's not addictive. Like
Oh,
so, and but that's why I put quotes on it because there's people that are putting out there. Well, it's not an addiction. It's not because of that same reason. It's like you're just looking for intimacy. You're just looking for, to fill a void or.
but that's why I say I believe it's unequivocally dangerous to have the mindset that you're not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
Like, we can go into the myriad humans that you're impacting when you choose to go there. And to say that it's not an addiction,
The
like,
numbers don't lie.
well, and if you were to look at Webster's dictionary of what an addiction is, look, I think you're trying to justify your actions because that's easier.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you just don't want to face what's going on. I believe the only way to get through what's going on in your world is to face it. You have to walk through it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Oh, yeah.
have to.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I we're in total agreement on that. So one thing that I think you might have mentioned either on the first Porn Paradox show that we did, or it was in text, I don't remember, but you mentioned something about couples using that as like something to spice up their relationship.
Mhm.
So I know this is going to be a touchy place to walk, but
Yeah.
I'd like you to kind of expound on that because I have some thoughts maybe in countering that or in agreement, but I just kind of wanted you to expand on that.
I look at stuff like that where you may be doing that. And if both of you have come together and that's what does it for you, okay, understood. But I also know that there are couples out there where one's bringing it, hey, we should introduce this, and one's only doing it to appease the other. That gets dangerous because then that person who's only doing it to appease the other may start to feel like, oh, I'm not sufficient. They have to go here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's detrimental, right? But yeah, I have been told, and whether or not they're being honest, I don't know. But I have had people come to me and say, yeah, it's part of our relationship. It works for us.
So,
Look,
I mean, and we have
I'm
different.
not going to tell you what goes on in my bedroom. That's not going to happen.
I'll be perfectly straight up with you, man, because that's just the space to do it. If somebody told me that, I'm calling 1,000% bullshit. Like, oh yeah, that's what gets us going, and that's so that would be like if somebody came to me, and yes, I'm being extreme on this, but somebody said, hey, the only way we can get fired up is if we go out and kill puppies.
Yeah.
And that's part of our routine. That's not healthy.
No, it's not.
And yes, that's judgment. And yes, that's whatever goes on in your bedroom is fine. But if you're going to bring it up, if somebody's going to bring it up and say, hey, well, that's the only way we can, I think that
No, I
dives
get it.
into a deeper, like the only way that you, and this is judgment. So yes, I get it. And it's harsh. But if the only way, like as a couple, like you can get into each other is by watching other people get into each other, I would say that there's something wrong and unhealthy in that relationship.
Yeah. So for me, where I go with that, brother, I mean, number one, I applaud you. You're 100% correct. That is judgment.
Yeah.
And you get to have it because it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
I would simply say, hey, do one of the first questions that comes to my mind in this space is, do you need support for something beyond that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is there some way that I can show up for you to meet like that connection? Is there something, right? Because yeah, you might have that judgment, but again, and typically, let's be honest, we're having these conversations with one half of the group, right? One half's like, yeah, I'm on board. Okay. So if I say, oh, is your partner on board with that too? Of course. What do you think they're going to say?
Yeah.
Right. So, but again, I show up the way I want to show up. I show up authentically, and it's like, hey, you know as well as I do, if there's something that you want to chat about with me, if there's something you want, need, or could use from me, let's have that conversation. But back to 22, right? When we're talking about who's at the table, like I'm one of those humans at the table. Tell me what you need. Because if you're going there because you're not getting a need met, pornography's probably not the root cause. You're throwing a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Yep.
Right? But that requires someone showing up truthfully and honestly and authentically themselves. God awful inappropriate for me to ask about what's going on in your physical relationship with your spouse. It's dramatically inappropriate.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't disagree with that.
Okay. But if you tell me that everything's good or that you're doing this to make sure, do you want me to go to your spouse and be like, hey, Aaron said some stuff. I just want to make sure you're backing that up.
Please don't do that.
No, not even a little bit.
So honestly, a lot of this whole couple thing is kind of a sticking point with me because I've talked to some other women offline, and my wife included. And again, this is judgment, and if I am wrong, I would be so happy to hear from a female listener that might be listening to it.
Before you say
whatever.
anything, I want to add to everybody listening and or watching, a judgment cannot be wrong. In and of itself, a judgment cannot be wrong. It's Aaron's right to have this judgment. It's his. It's not wrong.
I guess not saying wrong, but if the judgment I'm coming to and the conclusion I'm coming to based on conversations is inaccurate, I'm great to revisit that. And if somebody has a contradiction to it, I would love to have that conversation. But overwhelmingly, the amount of women that I've talked to say that it's either within a couple things. It's either they're doing it just to make their spouse, which is usually a male, happy.
Okay.
Because it's what they like.
Okay.
Or that they've agreed to it, but it makes them feel self-conscious. It gives them body issues. It gives them just all kinds of self-esteem issues and depression having to watch because we're by nature human beings, we compare ourselves to everything, especially in today's age of social media and videos. Like we compare ourselves to everything.
Sure.
So there are an overwhelming amount of study. I'm going to have stacks of papers and stuff here, and overwhelmingly one of the common themes is that men and women that are watching porn are continually comparing themselves to the people in those videos.
So
how
let's
men
chat.
look, how men perform, how women look, how women
So
perform.
let's chat.
Yeah.
These humans that have approached you about this subject, well, I'm only doing it for this. Have they said anything to their spouse?
I mean, what if they can't?
No, sir.
No, I get it.
Then
I get it. Go
well,
ahead.
now hang on.
Yeah, no,
And
go ahead.
this goes back to what I was saying. The reality of it is pornography is the surface,
Mhm.
right? That's just what you see. What are you lacking? And if you can't safely go to your spouse about how you feel about them looking at pornography as opposed to coming to you with that need, the issue, I assure you, is not pornography.
No, and I'm
If
not
you
saying
cannot safely bring that up to your spouse, and this is where I will go to the line with you. This is a hill I'm dying on, brother.
I know.
If you cannot safely bring this to your spouse, your problem is not pornography.
I
That's
don't,
it.
I don't disagree with that. My point is, if a man was drinking and beating the crap out of his wife,
Mm-hmm.
but she's staying around because she doesn't feel safe enough to say anything, there's no way we're going to her. I mean, most people aren't going to go be like, well, we need to figure out what else is going on.
Yeah. Well,
But
who's not going to them?
well, I'm talking in general, right? We're looking at like, yeah, he's beating you, leave, right?
No, it's because I don't believe it's as easy as leave. If it was as easy as leave, the left would have been gone, right?
Well, no, I mean, when you're talking about abuse, I mean that's a like a sticky
You're not
situation.
wrong. What I'm saying is, let's address the problem. You're not safe going to your spouse with it,
Mhm.
right? In what capacity? You're afraid that they're going to leave you. You're afraid that they're going to hit you. That you're afraid of their response. That you don't want to do this. What are you afraid of? That's why I say, Aaron, pornography. The reason that it's such a giant industry is because people hide behind it.
Oh, I don't disagree at all. I'm
Right?
with you. I'm
So
with you in this.
what do they mean they don't feel safe? Are they in relationships that they don't feel safe in?
I mean that happens all the time, right? People don't feel safe in relationships all the time.
So I haven't heard from those people.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just saying,
At least from the pornography side, right? So my encouragement to those, if you are one of those spouses that Aaron's talking about, number one, you already know what the answer is.
Mhm.
It's appropriate to go to your partner and say, hey, look, I'm only doing this because you want to do this. This is not something I want to do. So that brings up something entirely different, right? Why are you doing something you don't want to do, especially with someone who loves you? And I'll tell you why you get air quotes on that one if you want to go down that rabbit hole.
oh no, I know why they're.
I mean,
I just think it's
that's disheartening.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because it's so very close to my story. Like, I cheated on my wife because, oh, I want this connection. Oh, this person's paying attention to me. Oh, just like we talked about in 22, I feel seen. I feel pursued. I feel this. Right?
Yep.
Like, that's why I get so fired up and passionate about this. It's vitally important. Like, and Jennifer and I are in really interesting space right now in that I wake up at a 10, right? For those of you who have not had the opportunity to read the book, Come As You Are, if you haven't read it, you have to read it.
Yeah.
It's predominantly about women's sexuality, but it was an eye-opener for me. It was absolutely fantastic. But I wake up at a 10, and that's normal, right? She wakes up 1 or 2. That's also normal.
Yep.
Right? Like, and that's where I want folks to get to is, hey, what is it I pursued, right? It wasn't another woman. I didn't pursue another woman. I pursued being seen, being affirmed, being chased or pursued. If that's what your partner is looking for, that is a dramatically different conversation.
Agree, and I want to be clear. Like, I agree with you in in everything that you said. I'm my kind of devil's advocate is there's obviously if something is going on and you're not like you're in a relationship and you're not okay watching this stuff or partaking in this stuff, you need to say something. It's the same thing if you're in a kind of abusive relationship.
Yeah.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I guess what I'm saying is in today's society, right? If we, for the most part, if we see a woman that's showing up with a black eye or bruises, we're going to say something. We're going to say, hey, you
see that.
Yes. But the danger behind the pornography is, again, it's going on in your bedroom and it's none of my business.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the danger comes in. So I just want to, so there's quick, and this kind of goes along to the study. So there's a study that was done in 2012 that says couples who never watched porn had higher rates of relationship satisfaction than couples who looked at porn alone, and similar rates of relationship satisfaction as those who watched it together. But couples who never watched porn also experienced less infidelity than couples who watched porn together.
I believe that.
So
I believe that.
We talk about, like, I take extraordinary steps, in my opinion, to protect myself. Part of my story, you talk about, like, what your story and what you led and what you were chasing to. I was introduced to pornography at a very young age, at a very inappropriately young age.
Yep.
And from 9 on, I didn't understand what I was chasing or looking at, but it was there and I was trying to find it. So that's part of my story. So I have apps on my phone and I have things that I take precautions. It sends a report to my wife and I don't care what anybody thinks about it. Like, I'm proud about that. Researching for stuff for this episode, put up some red flags on stuff. But it's great because we can have a conversation and she trusts me in that. Something I found really, really interesting doing this research is talking about, and I think we can all agree, the unrealistic expectations of what real life intimacy and sex are in a relationship, especially a marriage relationship, versus what the porn industry portrays it as. Like, sex is never turned down, right? If you're watching porn all the time, nobody ever gets told no. Nobody ever gets told, like, I've had too much of a day with the kids. Nobody ever gets told, hey, I want to do this or try this or pour this all over you. Nobody ever gets told no, right? So that, especially as men, that creates unrealistic expectations of what intimacy and relationships look like.
And for me, this brings up something that I believe is a key word that not many people talk about, and that is desire. And desire is freaking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Desire is beautiful. And everybody has their built-in desires or something that comes along and they're like, oh, I desire that. It's absolutely vital that you go to your partner, hey, I have this desire and I just want to run it by you. So I did an exercise with Jen at one time called Always, Sometimes, Never. This is what's always allowed in an intimate encounter. This is what's sometimes allowed in an intimate encounter. And here's what's never allowed in an intimate encounter. Dude, it was a horrendously uncomfortable conversation for me because I didn't know how she was going to see me in those desires. Great conversation around Always, Sometimes, Never. But it required a conversation. If you desire something as a human, you got to run it by your partner. Hey, I was thinking about this. And they might ask, well, where did you see or hear about that? Have that conversation too. Mm-hmm. Maybe it just came to your head because of your imagination. Could. But I think it's vitally important to know your desires are good.
So on that, I normal desires and everything but I believe through the research that I have done that watching pornography changes your desires into something that is completely unhealthy.
1,000%. I'm on board. One thing that concerns me in what you just said.
What?
You led with normal desires. Brother,
I guess
that's
you can.
subjective.
It is.
And
I
I
guess
think it's
normal is.
vitally important that we're very, very careful talking about this topic because, like I said, what if I wake up at 10 and Jen wakes up at 2? Well, Jen, what's wrong with you?
So normal is not really the way. I wanted, in the general scope of the podcast, what is often referred to as like, I don't know how to say normal. Just normal is the only word I could think of, but I'm not saying everybody has to fit a certain mold.
Right.
I mean, there's certain things like that. Desires are different. So my whole point behind that is, so something, I'm going to go back to the notes. So something else I found. This was 5 studies that show how often porn normalizes violence against women. And it gives a couple examples. So there's just a couple points that I'm gonna that I want to read through that they highlighted. So it says lifetime pornography use and greater use of porn led to increased engagement in sexual behavior, sometimes described as rough and or dominant. Again, some desires might be different, but it says porn consumption increases physical and verbal sexual aggression towards women. The use of porn increases sexual choking acts, and more porn use increases the likelihood of sexually dominant behaviors, distancing them from their partners and reducing their sense of sexual satisfaction. I think you can go to studies of people like Ted, like looking at Ted Bundy. Like your brain gets desensitized to something, and you have to feed that addiction to get something more extreme.
Read that last one again.
The last one?
Mm-hmm.
More porn use increases the likelihood of sexually dominant behaviors, distancing them from their partners and reducing their sense of sexual satisfaction.
Stop. Distancing them from their partners. Everything that you just rattled off means something to someone. That right there, distancing them from their partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That, I believe, is the number one issue with pornography.
Oh, I don't disagree. And you talk about like you're searching after that intimacy. You want to be seen. You want to be pursued. And people go to pornography for that, looking for it. And ironically, or maybe not ironically, that's not the right word. All it does is cause more distance and more rift because you can't ever get that perfect situation that you're watching on the screen, right? There's no headaches in porn. There's no kids. There's no math homework, right?
I'll tell you, as we were talking, I realized what my biggest hang up with the pornography industry is.
What's that?
I have friends who won't be able to watch or listen to this podcast because of the extensive filters they have put in their worlds to make sure they don't go there.
And I'm okay with that. If that's somebody that's protecting themselves and they won't be able to listen to that,
I just don't
good
like
on you.
it. But that's just another unintended consequence of the industry.
Yeah.
This industry is running roughshod through our society.
And my opinion is because nobody will stand up and say that this is wrong. Or if they do, it's in the minority. Because there's money silencing it.
Where you're coming from. I do. And you and I had this conversation, and I've already said that I'm more liberal in this space because I don't know what's going on. And I think it's important too. Normal looks different to a lot of different people. I would just encourage you, if you're listening to this or you're watching this right now and you have some concerns because of this industry, speak up, right? It's evident that your judgment of it being as wrong as it is has to do with those who are close to you. And I love that about you. That says so much about your heart. And I think it's vitally important that those humans understand that the messages they're taking on about themselves in that space are not the truth about them. And if they can, it's vitally important that they reach out to a safe place and talk about the fact this is what it's doing to me. And if that's not your partner, please evaluate that relationship.
No, I think that's great advice. I think evaluating the relationship, and that's what I was getting at. Like if there's I don't know. And this again, a lot of this is judgment. I've done a lot of research and a lot of reading on this, so my judgment is based on the facts and stuff that I've read. And I get it. You can find studies on both sides. But if we, as society, we look at a woman who's being emotionally or mentally abused, or even physically abused, say, you need to protect yourself. You need to leave or get counseling or whatever it is. But when it comes to kind of for the most part, when it comes to like the pornography stuff, if somebody feels like they're being abused because of pornography in their relationship, we go into the whole, it's none of anybody's business because what happens in your bedroom is in your bedroom.
Well, if the abuse is outside of that bedroom, that's a problem.
Well, if the abuse is...
Quite frankly, if it's in the bedroom.
That's what I was going to say.
If you feel that you are being abused, it's abuse.
100%.
We're done. We're not having... There's no more to that conversation. If you feel that you're being abused, you're being abused. That's the end of the story. I don't care what your partner has to say. You feel like you're being abused.
And I agree with you. And I guess that's where my mission with this is like, I want a world where if people feel like they're being abused by somebody using pornography as a weapon or as a tool or whatever, that's okay to come forward and talk about that.
Of course.
So we're on the same page with that.
It's the same thing with your story. I want a world where someone who's been abused like you have, that you get to say that.
Yeah.
And you can you can darn sure bet that if anybody came to me and said, well, Aaron wasn't abused, I'd come through this freaking computer monitor.
I know you would. And that's why I love you. And you and I have...
the reality of it is, if you feel like you're being abused, you're being abused. Done.
Yeah. I think that's a hard stop. I agree with you in that aspect. And I think that's where my passion for this comes in, is part of my story was being introduced to this stuff.
Sure.
I mean, full transparency, and we're talking about authenticity and vulnerability, is like, any opportunity I could find, I didn't understand why, but any opportunity I could find, I was trying to, back when malls had bookstores, like, I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember Walden Books at the mall, the bookstores, that they still sold, the adult magazines, the Playboys, whatever they are. Yeah. And I would try to tear open the corner and just get I'm 10.
And now looking back, what is it you were wanting?
I'll be honest, I don't know. At that time, I was so confused as to what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. As an adult, it's easy to say, well, I was probably looking for... There's definitely not the physical sex side of it because I was 10. So probably some sort of... I don't know. I can't tell you what 10-year-old was looking for.
Right.
I agree now. It's always looking for something, some sort of intimacy, feeling some sort of like, hey, my wife's not going to... Again, like I said, like in real life, like when you're married with small kids, it's like, cool, bedtime took longer, headache, sickness, we got school tomorrow. Like things happen. With porn, it's easy. Click, click, you're there. Nobody's telling me no. I can watch whatever I want, about whatever I want, and be done with it and go about my way.
And it's the quick connection.
Yeah. But it's fleeting. And as soon as it's gone, it's 10 minutes later.
Quick. Right. But you're unsatisfied. It's essentially eating, a food, and like 10 minutes later, I'm hungry again.
Well, it's the same thing with drugs or alcohol. Once the high wears off from the drugs.
Yeah, it's an endorphin kick, sure.
You got to go back to it.
So I guess for me, where I go with this is, if you are experiencing, whether you believe it to be an addiction to pornography or you're not, or you have someone in your world that you believe, hey, ask, what are you looking for? And then, to Aaron's point in our last episode, challenge them on it. I think you're looking for something else.
I think anybody in anytime you're looking to fill a void with something, alcohol, food,
Sure.
pornography, work,
Sure.
money, car, whatever it is.
Yep.
I mean, I would say money, cars, work are all good things in their essence. In their essence,
Yeah.
they can become bad things. I would not put porn, drugs, alcohol in I mean, backtrack the alcohol thing. I'm a bourbon fan to a point, but you know what I mean. Like if you're using it for something different, right?
If you're, buddy, you know as well as I do, if somebody's masking something, please, God, get help.
Yep.
Because I mask with humor, right? We started this entire episode chuckling, right?
Well,
We
because
started this entire episode chuckling because I'm trying to mask my fear with humor. It doesn't matter what the mask is, you're masking nonetheless.
Yep.
Own it.
Completely
Hey,
accurate.
what's going on? What am I, like I said, every single tab that's open on my computer right now, I'm looking for something from that site.
Mhm.
What am I looking for from this site?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And again, I have I guess I have much more of a passion on the other side of I know I'm just one person and I'm never going to rid the world of this. I get it. But and this would be my kind of parting shot with it. I just see my boys being inundated with this stuff everywhere.
Sure.
And being a person that was abused sexually and had my innocence ripped away and felt addicted to this stuff from 10 years old through no fault of my own at the time, I'm very passionate about it to see it go away. And then to circle back to the beginning of this episode, if we're living in a world now where people can traffic children, take videos of them, and put them on the internet for people to pay for simply by blurring out their face, I have a major problem with that.
Good.
And
I would offer.
let me just finish it because this is going to sound harsh and it is a judgment, but if you're paying for these sites and you're partaking, even if you're not looking at the child stuff, you're enabling it.
I don't know if that's judgment or data. I'd have to think about that.
I would say it's data, but if you're paying these websites for, and let's just say stuff that is considered not, it's not the child trafficking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the fact is that there's a market for it, and I believe there's a market for this stuff because we become desensitized to what porn used to be.
Okay.
Because now we need more extreme stuff to satisfy that need.
Sure.
So, to your point, I think you'll probably touch on this, but to your point, if this is something that somebody struggles with, somebody that struggles with, again, have a conversation, talk about it, figure out what is the root cause of everything and what's causing you to search and to go down that destructive path. Because in my opinion, in my world, it's only ever led to destruction.
So a couple of things. Going down a destructive path, that too, in and of itself, is a judgment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a path that can be destructive. On levels, as we've discussed today, are much farther reaching than you're probably giving it credit for. In your parting shot, you started with, I realize I'm one man and I can't change the world. I would offer this. Simply by talking about this, you had people reach out to you to talk about it. So for them, you have. So would just simply offer that maybe you can take a look at, you're probably not going to have a worldwide impact the way that you would define worldwide impact. Yep. But you have changed someone's world simply because you're willing to come on here and talk about some tough shit. So I love you. I love that about you. I'm glad that we are having the conversation that we are, because I know it can't have the power that it has and no one's going to the sites.
No.
I'm glad that I have someone at my table who has the balls to come and sit. I dig that. That said, if you are in a situation where you are not safe, you do not feel safe, you feel as though you are being abused, and abuse looks different to everybody. If you feel you're being abused, you are. That's the end of the sentence.
Yep.
I encourage you, please, please, please reach out to someone that you feel is safe. In the event that's us, the warrior and the wolf at gmail.com is probably the safest spot for you to go with that. I brought this book up, and it's why I hopped off screen for a hot second. It's on my shelf. Yes, that's a purse. Don't get carried away. Come as you are. Emily is an absolute rock star. Emily has a TED Talk if you want to check it out. This is a fantastic book. Just to get a better grasp of, yep, that's normal. Yep, that's normal. My judgment is that sex is a lot like politics and religion. We don't talk about it very often. And clearly, it's a big deal. It is a big, big deal for a lot of people. So encourage everybody watching or listening. Hey, sex is clearly a part of society. It's certainly a part of my world. I have a license. It's a marriage license. So, like, I encourage you. I don't know why we don't talk about it. Desires are okay. I mean, I do know why I don't talk about it, but that's another episode. So, appreciate y'all sticking around for what, again, like I can only describe this as a very tough topic.
It is.
Thanks. This is tough, and we certainly know that we're not the only ones that are impacted. And again, we want to love on you the best that we can.
Absolutely. And I appreciate what you said. Yeah, if somebody wants to reach out, this is a good segue. Again, social media handles, we are at the Warrior and the Wolf podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Brian is really good about checking our social media posts and everything else like that.
Brian, tag Emily Nagoski. She's an absolute rock star. Love her.
Well, that's the only thing we want to tag in this episode, not the other stuff. We don't need to be contributing to that, but
yeah, don't go to the other websites.
No, not the other websites. No, or the email. Email it, as you reminded me, it's just the Warrior and the Wolf at gmail.com.
Yeah,
and same as the website, the Warrior and the Wolf, which I just recently discovered is also some crazy like Japanese kung fu film. So I might have to watch that. We should probably do a live review or something like that.
Now there's a film I'm willing to watch.
There you go. So I would like, this has been a very serious topic, and we talked about some really heavy stuff and got fired up a little bit about stuff. So if you're okay with it, I would like to end this with a little bit of levity and tell a funny story about myself, about how I almost lost my entire beard a few weeks ago due to a flaming marshmallow.
Give it to me. I'm hooked.
Yeah. All right. We were camping a few weeks ago with my boys, my parents, and my boys love toasting marshmallows, right? So I'm sitting there. Obviously, I have this majestic, wonderful beard. Toasting a marshmallow for my 4-year-old. It caught on fire. I went to go blow the thing out. I moved the skewer up a little too fast, and I felt like I was in a medieval movie where they catapult like the flaming ball of oil over the castle wall, and I just see this flaming marshmallow come and land right here. And it tumbles down onto the chair, and it's like there's a flaming marshmallow sitting between my legs on the camping chair. Face is on fire. So I had to make a choice of, do I save my beard or do I slide out of the chair, catch my pants on fire? So I gingerly get up from the chair, people yelling at me, the chair's on fire, and then they realize so was my face. So nice little burn hair right in through here.
Oh, yeah, that is thinner. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, just a bit of advice from the Warrior is don't blow your marshmallows out too fast or you might set your face on fire.
Get here. Oh, my gosh.
I don't know. I just felt like we needed some levity at the end. So, there we go. Thanks for indulging me, sir.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. So again, I'm the Warrior right over there.
I'm the Wolf. Thank you
Love
so
y'all.
much, man. Hey, we'll see y'all soon.